Hi guys, Madeline here. I'm recording another video for you. It's part of the pronunciation series, I guess we can call it. This will be the first one that's part of the series. The video that I recorded earlier, I just pulled out different sounds that seem to be the most challenging to people just starting to learn French. But I wanted to make something comprehensive that includes all of the different sounds in French that are different than in English. So this is going to be part 1.1, excuse me, 1.1. And it's just going to include the single vowels, as you can see here at the bottom, just the single vowels. So I've kind of mapped out like a 4-part course. Part 1 being just the vowel sounds, how to pronounce the French vowels. So there in red you can see that single vowels are going to be covered in this video. The next video will cover the double vowels, and the third video in part 1 would cover the different combinations of vowels and the sounds that they make. Part 2 would cover the consonant sounds in French. The previous video did include a few like the J and the G, but there's quite a few others that need to be covered. Part 3 would include the mute or silent sounds, which we know are so important in French. I feel like those mute or silent sounds are the thing that seems to kind of challenge a lot of people learning French and make them want to give up, you know, because you see a word, you want to pronounce everything in it, but in French there are some sounds that you don't pronounce, which makes it one of the more difficult Romance languages to learn, but I don't want that to stop you. Okay, the good thing about French is that the rules are very set. You have the Académie Française that decides the grammar of the language, the pronunciation of the language. It is very set in its rules. So there is a way to learn which sounds are mute, which sounds are silent. Once you get that down, you're good to go. All right. And then part 4 of the Pronunciation Simplified e-course will include the unusual sounds. So maybe you've heard the nasal N in French. There's quite a few just unusual sounds that we don't have in English, so that's what the 4.1 video would cover. So this is just a rundown of everything for French pronunciation. This would cover everything. So today we're just going to cover the single vowels, and you know, if I get some feedback and you want more, I'll continue to record these videos. So just remember, French pronunciation first. The most important part of learning the language. I find that both with myself and with my students or clients that are learning French, if they don't get down the pronunciation first, they seem to give up later. That's why I'm focusing on pronunciation in the beginning. Once you get down the pronunciation of French and you know what these sounds are like, you're able to go in whatever direction with the language that you want. You're able to learn whatever vocabulary you want to learn or need to learn, whether that's, you know, for your job, your career, for travel, or whatever. So I rather start with pronunciation. And of course we use some vocabulary words in French, you know, so that we can learn the pronunciation in context. So you will get a little bit of vocabulary in these lessons. So stick with the pronunciation. It is the most challenging part of learning French, so we might as well just get it out of the way first. All right, so let's get going. Single vowels. So just a reminder before, remember to must when you're learning French or any language, you have to expose yourself to the language. So exposure is very important. You're doing that right now, so that's great. And then of course repetition. So in these videos I really like to emphasize repetition, just like I do in my classroom, just like I do with private clients. I emphasize repetition because the goal here is to speak French. So to speak French, you need to hear French and you need to repeat French. So like in my previous videos, I'm going to say each sound or word twice, and then I'll pause, allow you time to repeat it twice, and then I'll repeat it once again just to confirm your pronunciation, and then we'll move on. I don't have the camera on tonight. If you feel that you need to see me pronouncing these sounds, let me know. I'll just record. I'll record it again with the camera like I did with the last one. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Our first single vowel sound, of course, is the A in French, which is pronounced ah, ah. So like when you go to the doctor and he asks, you to say ah so he can look at the back of your throat. That's the sound that we make in French for the letter A. So let's go ahead and say that. Ah, ah. Ah, good. All right, so now for some examples. Again, you can see the example word in italics. So that's going to be the French word in italics. The words in parentheses, of course, are the English meanings. So some words have more than one meaning. I've included them there in English in parentheses. So I'm not going to actually say the English word because we're not here to learn English. I'm going to only say the French word, again, twice, pausing to allow you to repeat it, and then once again just to confirm your pronunciation. Okay, so our first word in French is the ah. It has an accent grave on top. That is the backward facing accent. All right, so this word is pronounced ah. Ah. Go ahead. Ah. Good. So it's pronounced just like the letter A in French, ah, but it just has the accent on it. So that accent is very important. It does tell us that this is the preposition. As you can see, the meaning of that word here. So this is a word that's seen quite a bit in French because it means all three of the words there in English. All right, the next word is place. 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 As you can see, this word can mean quite a few things in French. I have all of the meanings there in parentheses. All right, our last word here in italics in French is the word quatre. 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 Very good. All right, our next single vowel in French is going to be the E. Now the E is going to sound the same when it's by itself. I'm looking here on the left side with in red. It's going to sound the same if it's by itself or if it has the accent circonflexe on top, or some like to call it the roof or the hat on top of the E. And then here we have the accent grave, which again, that is the backward facing accent. So they're all going to make the same sound, and that sound is going to be like the E in the English word yes. So let's go ahead and say this English word just so we can hear the correct sound. Yes. Yes. E. You hear the E? All right, so that's what we want to hear in French. So our first example here is the word elle. Elle. Go ahead. Elle. All right, our second example here in italics in French is et. 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 Good. You can see that et ends in an S, but if you've seen my previous videos, you know that the S at the end of the word is silent. If you haven't seen those videos, it's a good idea to go back. All right. Next, we have the word très. 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 Good. So You can hear that there's the guttural R there. If you're not getting the guttural R yet, that's okay. Okay. Next we have the single vowels, the I and the Y in French. So the I and the Y are going to sound the same in French, but they're going to make the E sound. So like the English E, like in feet. Okay, so let's say that, the E, E. All right, so all the I's and Y's in French are going to sound like E. Let's look at our examples in French. So here in parentheses, in italics, I have the French word, and then in parentheses, again, the English meaning of it. We're just going to say the French words. So the first example is the word dix, dix. Dix. All right, our next example is the month of the year, and if you're wondering, well, why is it not capitalized? That's not a mistake. In French, we do not capitalize the months of the year and days of the week unless they start a sentence. Okay, so let's go ahead and say avril, avril. Avril. Great. All right, our third example here is divan, divan, divan. All right, and the last example here, you may think it's just a letter, but it's actually a full word in French. If you've ever heard the phrase il y a, you're hearing this Y here, okay? And you see the meaning of it here. So it is pronounced I, I. I. Very good, that's it. Perfect. All right, so next we have the O sound in French. The O, the single vowel. So when you see the single vowel O in French, it's going to sound like the O like in no in English. No, O, okay? So let's look at some French words. First example is somme. Somme. Go ahead. Somme. Good. Our next example is post. 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 Very good. All right. So last we have the U in French. Now the U in French is going to sound like ew in English. Okay? So that's the sound it's going to make. So let's go ahead and say that. Ew. Ew. Very good. Let's look at some examples. So our first example is the word une. 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 All right, our next example is the word excusez. 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 Very good. Awesome. So you've completed all of the single vowel sounds in French. All right, so that is all we're going to cover today. If you have any questions, any comments, ask me, okay? Just reply to this message, email if you're getting it by email, or Facebook message, or just put it in the comments below. And so I have a channel now. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, that way you won't miss any new videos that I record. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope this finds you well, and I hope you have a good night. Thank y'all so much for showing up.